Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this session. This is the MLA, the Power of One Information Session 2. For all of you all who have joined us today during your lunch break, we appreciate you taking the time to be with us today. We have a great discussion for you. But before we get started, let me introduce myself. My name is Nicole Ward, and I am the Program Manager of the Multicultural Leadership Academy. And more importantly, I am also an alum of the 2018 cohort. So, what is MLA? Well, MLA is a leadership program that every year we bring together 24 Black and Latino community leaders who work together to build cross cultural understanding and to cooperate between communities. We have a network of over 300 leaders throughout the Chicago and South suburbs who continue to build Black and Brown solidarity in their communities. Now, the reason why we're doing this is because we want you to know more about MLA. Because come September, applications for the 2025 cohort will come out. And again, we will select 24 people from a diverse group, and we try to create balance across race and gender who will be a part of the legacy of MLA. So we'll be asking you to consider us and think about us when you think about your next professional development adventure. If you're interested, we ask that you click on the QR code that you see up at the corner and submit your interest form so that we can reach out to you and keep you updated. Now, what's going to happen within the next 45 minutes is you see we have our amazing leaders here. We'll have some Q&A where they get a chance to talk about their experiences, and then we'll share 15 to 20 minutes where you have time to ask us questions about our experience and get some questions answered. So for now, what I'll do is I'll pass it off to Miss Elizabeth.
Thank you, Nicole. Hello, everyone. Buenas tardes, good afternoon. And thank you so much for joining us for this conversation. My name is Elizabeth Cervantes. I am the founder of the Southwest Suburban Immigrant Project, a grassroots and documented-led immigrant rights organization that serves Will and DuPage counties. And I'm proudly a graduate of the original Leadership Academy program, a Latino Policy Forum, class of 2014-2015. And just excited and honored and grateful that I've been invited to take part in today's conversation and helping, helping you all learn, as well as myself, learn some things about, this amazing version of the Leadership Academy that is now the MLA. And with that said, I also want to wish everybody a happy official summer. I think we are at the summer solstice today. And so, and if you're also enjoying a lunch this afternoon, but you took the moment and the trouble to join today, happy lunch. Enjoy, provecho, but also so glad that you're here with us this afternoon. I want to get started, really just give these powerful women on our panel today the chance to introduce themselves and their organizations and also their class, right, for what cohort they were a part of. But to make this a little interesting, and because it is new, right? I think that moment of the day where, we're kind of like in the middle of almost done with our work, or maybe not, but, also got some work done probably. Just also share with us as we go around a song or an artist that lifts you up, or a song or artist that immediately puts you in the zone when you're working. And so I think I'm gonna, kick it over and start with Rocio.
Hi, everyone. Buenas tardes. Good afternoon. Thank you, Eli, for that introduction. My name is Rocio Pulido. I'm a senior program manager at the Resurrection Project in Pilsen. But I'm originally from Aurora, Illinois, the east side, second largest city in the state of Illinois, and I'm very proud of that. But I live and work in Pilsen now. A little bit about what I do at the Resurrection Project. I oversee our Immigrant Justice Leadership Academy, and that includes a fellowship that we run and all of our capacity building initiatives that we lead with our ecosystem of partners of immigrant serving organizations across the state of Illinois, which is 50 plus. And I was part of the most recent cohort that graduated, which is the class of 2023. And also part of what Nicole likes to call the bonfire crew, because my cohort loved late night chats around the bonfire. And one artist that I love that puts me in the zone in particular is Missy Elliott. I tend to listen to a lot of women. And when it comes to the rap genre specifically, a lot of women rappers. So I love Missy Elliott. And she helps me put in the zone when I really need to get some work done. But yeah, with that, I can pass it over to Sasha.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sasha Peña, and currently I just started a new role as head of employability for Reach Pathways, which is a social enterprise that's spun out of Chicago Scholars. For those that don't know, Chicago Scholars is a college access and leadership development program that supports first generation and/or students from low-income backgrounds and supports them to and through college and into meaningful careers. I've worked for Chicago Scholars over the last 8 years, leading the career programming, so everything related to career exploration, skill development, and ultimately connecting and preparing our young people for meaningful careers. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I'm from Chicago. I grew up in Hermosa Park, and I currently live in Pilsen. And I participated in MLA. I was the 2019 cohort. And my favorite artists, I have a lot, but I would say Beyonce is always reliable in just giving me a good affirmation that I need for the day. If I'm ever feeling sad or down, I play some Beyonce and I feel motivated. I'm so inspired that she, does different genres and is killing it in those genres as well. And so I would list Beyonce as my artist. I'll pass it to Juanita.
Okay, happy Friday Eve, everybody. I'm Jaunita Pye. I'm currently, we just created Trinity Consultant. So I serve as the President and Chief Program Officer, where we provide capacity building and technical assistance. It's a 3-part leadership with Jason Little and Sherry Rafai from Chicago, really honing in on the community violence intervention space. And so developing grassroots organizations, but also providing support to government agencies to ensure that we address violence in the way that it needs to be addressed. I am from 2020. We were COVID babies, so we missed a few things, but we still were able to build great relationships and really rock out as a cohort. Song, I'm gonna go with Mary, Mary, Go Get It. It's kind of like my fight song. If I need to choose one. I also listen to a lot of Rod Wave, but Mary, Mary, Go Get It is my fight song.
Thank you so much, Rocio, Sasha, and Juanita. I know what I'm going to be listening to after today. And absolutely, I think Beyonce is quite the reliable, always dependable go-to artist. Thank you for sharing a little bit about your work and your kind of lived, right, kind of experience in terms of your community, right? And I think that, for a 2014-2015 cohort graduate, one of the things that's to this day has stayed with me is the level, right, of conversation that we engage in and get to share about ourselves and bond with people in a different way. And so I want to actually, but that was 10 years ago. And Rocio, you mentioned the bonfire kind of cohort. Mine's was also the late night conversations, right, at retreats and the card games. And, it was just like feeling like being in college again, almost, but in a very productive way at the same time. And I cherish all of that from my time in the program. And so today I want to be able to, learn a little bit more about each of your experiences as well. And I want to actually start with knowing if maybe Rocio, you could help us share what was the biggest or most important takeaway from the program. And I know that may be a hard question because there's so many good things, right, about this program. But if you could really name one single most important takeaway, what would that be?
That is a difficult question because there was so many components and facets that I took away from participating in the program that made such a huge difference for me. But I think for me, the biggest one was just how much more in common that we have than like differences, right? In particular, I joined the cohort at a time where there still is a really heightened racial tensions in the city and in our state, especially because I work in immigration, and there's been a lot of tensions with the recently arrived migrants, the longstanding undocumented community as well, and the Black community as well, in terms of who's getting the support and resources that they need from our government and public sector. And so I appreciated the fact that the Multicultural Leadership Academy creates a very intentional cohort and very intentional spaces to be able to talk about these issues. The MLA and the facilitators do not shy away about bringing very difficult topics that can be either, just hard to talk about in your day-to-day jobs, or we don't often take the time to really step back and reflect beyond going to meetings and doing the work that we're also committed to doing for our respective communities. So I just appreciated the fact that MLA, Nicole, all of the facilitators and staff at Latino Policy Forum are really intentional about creating the space so that we can talk about these issues. And so for me, that was like the biggest takeaway. And also the fact that you mentioned, Ellie, it feels like going back to college. I certainly felt the same way too. And those were some moments that really just helped kind of like ground me and bring things full circle. Because when I was an undergrad and I graduated in 2015, there was a lot of really, tragic things that happened in our country, for example, like Trayvon Martin. And so we had those discussions on campus. And so be able to kind of relive that in a different context with different folks at different stages of our careers, not students anymore, for me was helpful, and just kind of reiterating again the commonalities that all of our communities face as people of color or folks that are not necessarily represented in different institutions and positions of power. And so I think for me, the biggest takeaway is creating that intentional space to have these difficult conversations and also to, build relationships with one another. And we don't always necessarily get the opportunity to do that. So that's my biggest takeaway.
Absolutely. I love how you named, Rocio, how sometimes we're in the day-to-day of our work and we know, right, kind of what we're working on, we know what we're working towards, but taking a step back and going into a little deeper into our why and into our why as a community is something that we don't get the chance to do often because we're so busy. And I love that you named that. That was certainly my experience as well in the program and in the academy conversations, and the way that my brain stretched, right? Like I felt like engaging in these conversations was stretching my brain in such an important and crucial way. And that stayed with me. And I think I've even brought some of that practice into my work, right, with others. But I also want to hear from Juanita, in terms of your experience and the single most important takeaway from the program for you.
Thanks, Elizabeth. And hearing Rocio talk about Trayvon Martin. So my experience was similar. I'm going to cheat a little bit and say there's two things. One was the importance of self-care, and the other was the power of collaborative leadership. And so the first meeting that we had at the museum, as applicants will experience, I witnessed so many people, so many service providers that were in desperate need of an outlet. There were so many tears, there was so much pain, historical trauma. And so prior to that, I thought that, self-care was spa days and vacations. And so, being able to really hone in on like meditation and being mindful and mindfulness and taking, time for myself, I think was the largest thing. And the second part, again, we were in 2020. And so after only one retreat, at the time I was serving as the executive director for the YMCA, which included South Chicago, Humboldt Park, Little Village, Woodlawn. And so after the gruesome murder of George Floyd, my staff was divided. And there were like messages going back and forth with everything that was happening in South and North Lawndale. And I was able to call on some of my Latino cohort members to walk through the process of kind of that first meeting where we take, all of the Black staff and all the Latinx staff and do that truth telling, and then come back together as a group to identify that there are issues and they don't lie within these individuals, right? And so I think without those partnerships and without having those conversations, I don't even know what the situation could have turned into for my team. But again, there was tears, there was camaraderie, and there was apologies because we hadn't had those honest conversations. And we were working shelters in each other's communities, 24 hours. And so making sure that everyone was safe, traveling to different places and all of that was key. And so I know I wouldn't have been able to have those conversations without the collaboration.
How transformational. And I love that, the truth telling kind of moment. And I think 10 years ago for me in the program, what was sort of elemental was that I felt like I was in a safe space, right? I felt like accountability could take place because I also felt like I was valued by others in that room as well. And I think that's a recipe or part of the recipe for truth telling. And I'm just curious, Jaunita, if you feel like your leadership changed as a result of the Academy, maybe a pre and post sort of a pre and post assessment of your leadership. Do you feel like something changed?
Absolutely. I think, again, as a result, when I look at how I treated self-care, so as a team, I implemented mandatory self-care plans. Each member had an accountability partner that they needed to meet with each week. Some of the things that I've transitioned to other roles as well, but also not entering spaces with assumptions, right? As a Black woman in the city of Chicago, I looked at the Latinx community as having it together, right? Like having their culture and having a language and having a history, which we don't. And being in spaces and listening to my friends say that, they are ostracized as an American or, as someone that whatever that looks like. And so definitely changed as a leader and looking at, what happened to you opposed to what you did.
Absolutely. Sasha, to hear a little bit more from like you and your experience, before you started your participation in the Academy, did you have maybe a set of expectations and then maybe something surprised you after going into the Academy that you could share?
Yeah, that's a great question. My MLA experience was the first time I actually invested in professional development for myself. I was the type of person who just spent all my time at work, from morning to night, and just was very involved in work. And so in considering this as an option, I thought it would be more work, but it actually really helped transform my relationship with work and really made me focus on myself and my needs. I know Juanita talked about self-care, making time to invest in myself, to learn more about myself, to get out of my comfort zone, and meet new people and discuss different topics. was different for me, but it was the best possible experience, and it was a good reminder and lesson in making time for things like that. It's easy to go through life and just let it happen to you, but this space allowed me to reflect on all of my experiences, my history, my culture, other people's history and culture, and learn something new about myself, as well as make a meaningful connection with other people. And so I'm really thankful for that. It's also like expanded my network in so many ways, because I had a very education focused network, right? All the nonprofits in Chicago kind of know one another. But in my cohort, there was folks that worked in housing for the government, and now, are in a major role for the city, who worked for many different industries. And so that was a great thing for me to expand my network.
Yeah, I love the network that it gets just sort of added and enhanced with every cohort, right? And I've been able to also meet new cohort members across the years, even if they weren't in mine. And that is so powerful. I think just like a bonus of this program. But Sasha, you talked about like investing in yourself, right? In your professional development. And like that resonates with me, because I think when we're so busy sometimes it's hard to, and I don't know if anybody who's like listening to this conversation today feels the same way. Like, how could I ever find time or make room, right, to like go away on a retreat? There's like, I have a million deadlines and I have people who depend on me. And I was lucky, I think, that my colleague and co-founder had gone through the academy before me and said, no questions asked, you absolutely must do this. But it's still a decision, right? It's still like, can I commit to this program, and can I be away? And so I wonder if that was something that went through your head, Sasha, as you were preparing to apply for the academy, or like what made you say, I gotta do this?
I love everything that it stood for. I love that it was bringing together Black and Brown folks and leaders across different sectors to come together and lead true transformation. I think if we want to transform things, we have to do things differently. And so I thought that that was a great model for it. I also learned about like the artistic components, and I thought that that was unique in how they integrated art into the professional development experience. And so those things stood out. I did get to attend an informational and hear about the impact that it's had on people's lives. And when I heard that, read that, saw the testimonials online, I was like, I want to be a part of this. I need something. I've been doing my job for many years, and I need to do this. I was also stepping into a new role, and so I thought that seeking professional development outside of my, little bubble, would really help me. So I think those are some of the things that drove me to apply. When I had my interview, I remember it was with Nicole, and I just felt like it was such a comfortable like interview, and like I felt her warmth and presence, and like um, 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 I heard a little bit about her testimonial and how she experienced the fellowship, and so that was like just the nail in the coffin. After doing my own research and doing the work, but going through the interview process, I really felt like that this was a good experience for me to be a part of and want to be a part of. And I left that interview saying, "Oh, I feel really good about that. I want to be a part of that." So those are some of the factors that really drove me to applying and accepting and everything.
Thank you, Sasha. I mean, Nicole is just the best, one of a kind. So, and I think we can all agree there. And I think just to our audience today, if you're one of those who are, your leader transitioning into a new role, or even you're considering, kind of applying for a different role or experience or opportunity. This is also like for you potentially, right? Or, maybe you've been in that place for a really long time in that role, right? But need to step back, right? And reflect. This also could be for you. But I just kind of want to invite, folks here today to, if anything is coming up for you, you have any questions, please use the Q&A feature here and leave some questions for us, we're happy to, you know, talk about those things. Rocio, I wanted to know from you, was there anything that surprised you? And like maybe you thought, okay, I got a sense of what this is, but then we're completely surprised by something in the program.
It's a great question. I think for me, I agree with Sasha. I think for me, I was a little surprised about like the artistic expression piece. I wasn't fully like understanding of what that would look like in the program. And I think the way that the program is set up and all of the activities that we do are such an amazing reflection that make you think about, you know, the power of one and transformational leadership, about our identities of Black and Brown folks, but also like artistic expression. You know, I feel like our communities are so vibrant and artistic, and we don't often get the opportunity to really express that or really appreciate the arts sometimes. And so I really appreciated that component to the program. And I also appreciate just the fact that some of the activities also make you like a little uncomfortable or get you out of your own comfort zone. Like I remember at our first retreat, one of the facilitators had us all stand in a circle, and we did like a dance to introduce ourselves. And I was like, are you serious? Like, I don't want to dance in front of people I don't know, you know? And so it made me get out of my comfort zone, right? And I'm like, well, everybody else is dancing, like, who cares? And, you know, it created also like, I appreciated feeling safe, that I was able to express myself in that way, or not necessarily feel apprehensive about having a differing opinion of someone else in the room, and like pushing each other to think beyond the scope of what we know. And so for me, you know, just getting out of your comfort zone and doing different activities that that force you to think about your own leadership, your own trajectory, and who you are in this space and in your community, I think was something that I didn't quite expect, but really appreciated after the fact.
Absolutely, the vulnerability, right? And just like leaning into that, but not even whether you're ready or you're not. I feel like in my experience, we had to jump in, right, to that vulnerability, but it's so powerful, right? After the different meetings and the amount of meetings that we had in my case, there was 3 retreats across, you know, the program. And it was like I was a different person by that end, you know, that final retreat, in terms of my ability to be vulnerable with people that at first I was like, I don't even know this person, right? And now we could share really just powerful reflections with each other. I know, and I don't know if this was the case for any of you, and please feel free to jump in, but I was surprised by the tears. I mean, I thought this is a, you know, really a powerful, absolutely space, right? And I think everything that's been mentioned so far is absolutely true, this space. But I was not ready for the amount of crying in such a transformational way that was going to happen in the space, right? And I remember one particular activity where they said, you know, bring a token or an item, you know, that represents you, that can, and you'll speak and you'll present like a show and tell. And I thought, okay, that's pretty straightforward. I can do that, you know. And you know, I think people brought a portrait of their family, or you know, some cultural like artifact. And I thought, okay, I'm going to share a little bit of my family. When I was up there, when it was my turn to share, I mean, I didn't know where the tears came from. I was just like bawling and thought, what is happening to me? But I also loved, you know, how everybody just embraced me in that moment and was like with me, right? And said, yeah, like there's more to our stories, right? That often we don't have the space to share. It's what makes us, I think, for many of us, makes us the leaders that we are. And we got to tap into that. But that definitely I wasn't ready for. And I don't know if that was any of your experience, but feel free to jump in and share a little bit. Sasha, I see like you're thinking and nodding.
Yeah, I can completely relate to that experience. I feel like it was a very safe space, and the way that we began with showing that cultural artifact really allowed for everyone to share a piece of their story. So when you start that way, you know, you can only imagine how the rest of your journey together will go. And so I think that, and I can speak for myself, but I think a lot of people have shared like they didn't have a space like this that existed. And so just sharing your story and who you are and the challenges that you're facing and experiencing, and having someone else like connect to that challenge or just listen and just hear you out, is really powerful and emotional. And I think throughout the fellowship, one of the things that you learn about is like different types of leadership and different frameworks of leadership. But at the end of the day, I think MLA really emphasizes like transformational leadership and like authentic leadership and what that means for you. And you may be taking things from other pieces and like creating your own definition. And that was really powerful for me because I felt um at times and at the time like a lot of imposter syndrome as I was like growing, and getting more responsibility. And MLA became a space where I could share that with other people. So I love the fact that there were people across different age ranges, so people who could relate to me, people who have been there and have experienced that and have learned lessons along the way. And so those moments were really, really powerful. So it is an emotional experience. You're like expected to get out of your comfort zone, and you make natural connections. I don't think it's forced at all. And that carries over even outside of the MLA experience. I know that right after the pandemic happened and we would check in on one another, right? And we try to see each other once a year, but other people see each other more, right? But we try to do a reunion. We just had one a couple of months ago, but we reflect on those emotional conversations, those arguments, even those disagreements, I should say, because they were productive and force people to really challenge your ideas and ways of thinking. And I grew a lot in those conversations that we had. So that's a little bit that came up for me, as I reflect on my experience.
Definitely. The imposter syndrome is so real. And to see that I'm not alone in this, and I feel like, right, Sasha, you might have experienced similarly, is so liberating. I'm wondering, to kind of pivot our conversation a little bit into what makes MLA what it is today, which is the Multicultural Leadership Academy. I know that in my time, I was part of the Latino Leadership Academy, and it's changed. And I haven't seen, right, I think, anything similar to this program, you know, even across the years. And so I want to learn too from you all, from you three here, like just specifically, you know, what do you think is the biggest challenge, right, to building Black and Latino solidarity? And how does this space address that? I wasn't fortunate to be able to delve too much into that conversation in my time, but I know it is one of the key differences today with this program. And I think we'll start with Juanita.
Thanks. Biggest challenge. And this is along the lines of when you talked about what shocked you. I didn't know the Black people in the room, right? Like most times I went into spaces and I was the only Black person. Definitely, there's a shortage of Black men in leadership spaces. And so being in and even in MLA, we experienced that too, where it's the lowest application pool and different things like that. And so going into the room and then having to build a relationship with people who are doing the same services with different ideas and backgrounds and methods to get into whatever resolution it was, and then crossing over. I think that was MLA addressed it because they allowed that time. They allowed the space for the groups to kind of meet together. But then across, I think that there's still a lack of clarity maybe around how similar or the power in us being united. And I think that for me, oftentimes people think that, we have to have the same issues in order to support each other, right? Like, well, if I don't understand mass incarceration or the frequency at which Black males are murdered by firearm violence, then that's not my fight. I'm fighting immigration or, whatever that thing is. And MLA allowed us to understand that you can have support even from individuals that are not experiencing those exact same things, right? Like you can share your stories and they can be a voice and an advocate for you on behalf of the things that matter to you, because now you matter to that person. And so I think that was my biggest feeling of kind of jumping over a hurdle, so to speak.
That's so powerful. Rocio, as a leader in the immigrant justice space, could you share a little bit too on that in terms of the challenge, with building Black and Latino solidarity?
Absolutely. I mean, I think for me, it was especially important to do this program in particular that encompasses not just Latinos, but Black folks as well. Because we have a network called Illinois Access to Justice, and we work with the Westside Justice Center. And so TRP, we support an ecosystem of organizations that are immigrant serving, and Westside Justice Center supports organizations that focus on communities impacted by incarceration, and disproportionately that affects the Black community. And so we have also been working with each other, across our network. And so for me, it was very timely to participate in this program that focused on, Black folks and Latino folks as well. And so it was really, I think, just grounding to be able to share that space with everyone, to not only discuss the things that we have in common, but also like what makes our respective communities different and how these set of issues touch our communities at a different rate, right? And so for me, it was especially important because there are more and more Black immigrants that are arriving to the US. And in Chicago in particular, there's a lot more Haitians that are arriving, that are escaping a really tumultuous time in Haiti at the moment. And so I think for us, we've also been trying to address internally with our communities, anti-Blackness within the immigrant community. And so for me, it was really important to, start with my own biases and making sure that, I don't hold those biases, and what is the work that needs to be done in order to dismantle those biases within the immigrant community as well, because Black immigrants in particular, not only do they have to face the consequences of, immigration policies, but also, the police state as well. And, stressing the importance of the intersection of these issues, but also understanding that some of these, policies are disproportionately affect our communities as well, and acknowledging that too, right? And so participating in the program for me, helped me bring those issues to the forefront and discuss those with, my cohort members as well, and how we can better, address that together, and not just organizations that are necessarily working in the immigrant justice space, but also as a broader coalition, especially for us, our TRP, since we work with, our partners that work on incarceration and how these issues again intersect. And, again, dismantling those, learning, the tools to help dismantle, anti-Blackness in the immigrant justice space, especially because Black immigrants get, denied asylum at a higher rate than everybody else, and also get, deported at a higher rate than any other demographic within the immigrant community. And so I think it's so important to, again, understand the intersections of the issues, but also respecting our differences and how we can uplift and support each other as well in tackling our own biases.
Thank you for beautifully laying that out, Rocio, in terms of the, personal kind of transformation, right? That I think each of us in our own experience and ethnic identities have to undergo. And then the systemic, right? And the community level kind of like transformation and checking ourselves. And thank you for naming the anti-Blackness. And many times that is very, very pervasive in brown communities, but also Latinx communities. And so it makes me think really about just how it's always been important that we have this very difficult conversation about unity, because unity sounds beautiful, but it's so hard, right? And it's the work that has to go into unity maybe can actually be a little painful in the beginning, right? And so thank you for kind of naming that entire process. Sasha, I'm wondering if you could share, since your participation in the program, what are some ways that you've continued to maybe build Black and Latino, Latinx solidarity in your community or in your work and for maybe your organization?
Yes, great question. I definitely have incorporated a lot of the things that I've learned through my fellowship experience into the work that I do. As I mentioned earlier, I support specifically students navigating career. And so learning about different careers, entering the workplace and navigating, maybe being the only person of color in those spaces. And so some of the things that I've incorporated that I've learned from MLA is just giving our students the opportunity and time and space to share those experiences and stories with one another, creating that sort of opportunity to bond and connect with folks who are in the same boat as them, which is one another, like the peer-to-peer support, because that is powerful, especially as you're preparing to enter a workforce where you might feel like you are the only one, but are connecting with other people who are also experiencing that, but also have people who have been through that and experienced it and shared it with their work. So just making space for conversations like that. Also, I've supported many of my cohorts' initiatives. Some have ran for office, some have led their own like art gallery showings. And so just showing up and being there, which is a part of me like expanding my network. But these connections have become friendships. And so supporting folks in my cohort who are leading amazing work. And I've had cohort members come to my events and participate as panelists for my career panels. I've had volunteers, I've had cohort members hire students even for their organizations. So Elle was a supervisor for one of our interns at her place of work. So just continuing to build even outside the fellowship experience and years later, because that was 2019, it's 2024. And so those events and collaboration is still happening and taking place.
I love that, just the amount of support, right, that continues to just evolve, but depending on where you are in your professional journey as well. I know that I've had so much support from people in my cohort, to my organization, but also just like me, right, like personally, and like people who check up on you actually, and people who no matter how much time has gone by, right? When you see them, it's like this just such beautiful friendship, right? That has happened and occurred, and yeah, it has added so much value, I think, to my life, but also to the work that I'm doing, and so I just want to, before we take questions from our audience today, I also want to hear from Jaunita on how have maybe you continued to build Black and Latinx solidarity in your community.
So I was listening to Sasha say that she's been able to continue that for so many years. I think the challenge with the cohorts is that once you attend the Leadership Academy, then you're on the move. Your trajectory professionally changes a lot. And so we've been able to do a lot of amazing work. A partner of mine is leading at the Chicago Park District. And so we did Black and Brown conversations with the teens in my program. We did conversations with Chicago Police for a few years. We did events. So we would host in Latinx and Black predominant communities and then like bring the groups over to each other's communities. So we did ice skating in both 59th and I don't know, Cottage Grove area, and then also on Western Avenue, Christmas coats and toy giveaways. But I think in current day, my experience has allowed me to continue those relationships outside of the cohort members. And so I do work in Chicago Lawn, which is heavily segregated, even by the organizations. And so one of the programs that we have, we get referrals from the 8th District for youth that have been arrested age 10 to 17. Sometimes though the families are Spanish speaking only. And so I've been able to forge a relationship with SWAP and Envision to have their staff go with our staff, you know, to do that initial contact with the parent and different things like that. And so I think overall my mindset around what we can do together is stronger. And so no matter if that person was in my cohort or not, no matter if they're Black or Latino, I know that together we're able to make a larger impact. And so we need to, like Sasha, get back to doing some of that stuff. 2023 was a little slower than other years, but yeah, it's been great.
Thank you, Juanita. Yeah, I think that we need to is right. There is no, I think, option, right, around not doing this work now more than ever. Now more than, you know, perhaps it's always been important, but where the country is today and where our communities are today, right? Intentionally doing this work is probably just a mandatory thing for us as leaders, right? Us as in this sector. And so if you are still having your lunch, or folks in the audience, and you're already at the point where like, I have no more questions, this is something I want to apply for, you know, go ahead and let us know what questions you have about that. And Nicole and our friends, Graciela, you know, Latino Policy Forum will be happy to answer in a little bit here some of those questions. But if you're also still like not sure and thinking, this all sounds really great, but I need more information, right? That is absolutely okay as well. Drop your questions in the Q&A and we'll try to get to them. And while that happens, and I'll allow just a couple of minutes for that, I just want to do like a quick round, like just a closing round with all of our amazing women leaders here. And just share a little bit more on the interpersonal side of things, right? And on the sort of that's sort of the journey inside, right? In your leadership growth. I know that in my time, and I'll give an example, in my time, we did a lot of assessments as well. And I learned the value of understanding myself as a leader, right? Understanding how I show up, understanding even just like, you know, leadership styles sounds like a no-brainer, right? Like we, you know, if you're in a leadership position, we should know about leadership styles, but there's more to it than that I learned in my time in the program, right? And it's how I can work with others, you know, what are examples of actually working and collaborating and understanding my blind spots as well within my leadership, right? So I'm just curious, and if we could maybe close with that. What is one thing, right, in your leadership and interpersonal kind of journey through the program that you want to share with our audience, you know, about? And, you know, we'll start with Sasha and go from there.
I'm going to cheat a little bit. I have two. One is professional, one is personal. Elizabeth, like, very similar to you, is really understanding my own leadership style and what it means to be an authentic leader. So I had a lot of opportunity to reflect and share what I was feeling about like the changes in my role and just growing and learning as a professional. And I feel like it was the perfect space to learn about myself when it comes to that. The second is I am a Black woman, I am Latina, and this is the first space where I felt like I could share that experience. I really love the conversations around just the historical context of Black and Brown communities. And often when we talk about that, it's like Black or Brown. And a lot of people don't necessarily know or have met someone who is a Black Latino person. And so I was the first for many of my cohort members, and I was appreciative of the opportunity to share that experience, to talk about how I didn't really have an understanding growing up, just because, right, the media doesn't share those stories, and a lot of people don't have access to that information. And so that contributes to historical tension and differences, right? The government has contributed to that and made it complicated by not like understanding the complexities of race and ethnicity and identity. And so I was really appreciative of having the space to share that and to talk to other people about their lived experiences. And it's something that just inspired me and challenged me to share that experience more with people that I meet in different settings. And so I'm thankful for that.
Muchas gracias, Sasha. Rocio, do you want to share?
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think it was, such a fantastic opportunity to really reflect on myself and my leadership. Because when I was doing the program, I had a conversation with my boss. I'm like, I'm ready to step up. I'm ready to do something new at my job, and so I think, participating in the program really helped me take the time to reflect on that and in my particular role, and also just, giving me the opportunity to take the time to reflect on that, because I had been just like, go, 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 go. And so to have that space and also to hear from others as well was really, I think, helpful and special. And the camaraderie that we built was like such a big takeaway for me too. And professionally, this participating in MLA, once we did the graduation in September of last year, I got a promotion, and so it did really help me professionally as well, in addition as to like personally. And we run a fellowship program at TRP that I oversee, and so just seeing how Nicole facilitated and managed the program, and all of the facilitators as well, really inspired me as to some new elements that I wanted to introduce to how we run our own fellowship. And so, for me, just again, participating and seeing that modeled, and even though our fellowship is different, was really special, because our fellowship focuses on creating legal representatives. And so for me, it's also important that we don't just focus on immigration, but we have a racial justice lens as well. And so, being able to help facilitate that and implement that into our fellowship was really helpful too. But yeah, I mean, just having the space to really reflect on yourself and to hear from others too was to me like one of my biggest takeaways, and just building that camaraderie and relationships with one another as well.
And it keeps on giving, right? I know even just 10 years ago, when I had all this just tools and things I learned, I still continue to refer back, right? And it's almost like they evolve with me, and I've been able to plug them into the work that I do as well. So it doesn't stop at your cohort your time during the cohort, right? It continues to give you more. Juanita, do you want to share?
So I'm an academic. I get information, curriculum, whatever, books I'm studying. And so when I got into MLA, I was looking for, where's the syllabus? Where is the information, thinking that that is how I was going to transform as a leader. And the transformation came through the experiences, the relationships. It helped me to see that leadership is about empathy and compassion, and really have an emotional capacity to be curious and not, checking boxes, right? I utilize reflective supervision because I need to know who the person is, not who your program manager is, not who, X is, but who are you as an individual? What are the things that you're dealing with as a person, whether that's work-life balance, whatever, emotional things, grief, past traumas. And so I want any applicants, if you're thinking about how you transform, it is not how much information you can learn or retain, or, you know, the notes from the curriculum. Different leadership styles is key to have. Definitely read. I tell people all the time, if someone doesn't read, they can't lead me, because things are changing too fast for you not to be abreast to what's happening. But know that who you are as an individual is who you are as a leader. And so taking care of the whole you is my takeaway from this experience, and being able to meet new people and get new understandings and not be rigid in what I thought was right or wrong, was the experience for me.
Thank you so much, Juanita. Taking care of the whole you, right? As a leader, as a person, as a mujer, as a woman, right? As people of color. I feel like that is the best way to describe this and to end sort of this conversation. And, you know, with that, I think we want to make some room for, you know, there's some questions, it looks like, you know, about how do I apply? How do I do this? How does it work? But it's been such a wonderful time. I think in this it went by so fast. I feel like I have more questions for you all. There's actually one question from our audience, and if I could get the support of just one of our amazing women here to help us, you know, share your thoughts on that. And the question is, how do you see the role of Black and Latino leaders evolving in Chicago? So specifically, I think about it's addressing change, right? And how can programs like MLA support this evolution? Such a great question.
Okay.
Yeah, Juanita, go for it.
How do I see MLA supporting the evolution of Black and Latino leadership in Chicago? I know that the experience is genuine and organic, and it allows for relationship building first. And then it allows for the individual to look at whatever thing it is that they want to solve. And so I know that MLA does this. I think that that's a critical thing, that building trust. The circle that we do initially at the Museum of Science and Industry is a trust building circle as a restorative justice practitioner. And so leading with trust, leading with true relationship building can definitely forge alliances, I think, between the Black and Latinx communities in Chicago. I really wish that more people could get in at a time because it's needed. And any work that we can do, I think, around just sharing our experience, because everyone won't be able to go through the academy, but making sure that we are sharing that experience and sharing the necessity for our relationships, I believe is key. And I lost my last train of thought.
No, but that yeah, so much there, right? With the trust building, because we are in an evolving world, and I for one believe, right, that we are the leaders that we need, and so we need to invest in ourselves and invest in each other, right? So thank you for that, Juanita. And with that, I'm gonna take it back to Nicole and Graciela.
Thank you so much, ladies, for such an engaging conversation. And Elizabeth, a big kudos to you. I truly appreciate the fact that you started off the conversation very reflective of our workshop style of MLA in the Illinois Latino Academy. So check in first, we check on each other first, and then we have a conversation, and then we wrap it up with a check-in. So thank you so much for that. You did a wonderful job. And to Rocio, Juanita, and Sasha, you are amazing, the work that you all do. And I am so proud and honored to be a part of this community of people who have a true commitment to community and the work that you all do. So I am so excited and love to continue to do this work with you all. Every day it gives me energy to get up and do this work. And when I listen to you all, it's like, those days you have when you're like, oh, I just don't feel like it. but then you refresh me and you be like, okay, this is why I do what I do. And so thank you for that reminder. And on the behalf of the Latino Policy Forum and the Multicultural Leadership Academy, thank you so much for representing what true Black and Brown collaboration looks like. Thank you. I love you and appreciate you. And to our audience, I know it's at 1 o'clock and we have a lot of questions that need to be answered. Just know that I am accessible and available. So for any questions that you didn't have, reach out to me through the Academy at Latino Policy Forum email address and the QR code, and I can schedule a one-on-one to answer all those questions. Recruitment will begin in September. You will complete an application, and then we will do a conversation with everyone. And then from there, our alums and some of our alums that are here being part of that process will select the 24, because I know there were quite a few questions regarding the process, and I did want to answer those. Thank you, Graciela, for putting that in the chat box. It is now 1 o'clock, and I want to thank our panelists, and I want to thank all of you all who have spent this hour, our lunch hour, your lunch hour with us. We appreciate you, and please look out for more information coming from the MLA. And again, have a happy Friday Eve and enjoy your weekend. Thank you, ladies, and thank you to our community who spent time with us. Have a wonderful day. Thank you.
Thank you.